Today, let's talk about something that everybody in the computer industry has an opinion on. We're talking website design. Welcome to Beyond Kalidasia, the show that takes you behind the scenes of the space combat miniatures game Legends of Kalidasia. I'm Jason, the creator of the game. Now, on the last episode of Beyond Kalidasia, when I was talking about how you're going to go about promoting your independently published game, I briefly mentioned, and give a few examples about running an online store. So let's kind of go down that hole a little bit deeper and talk about how you actually set up and some of the ideas you want to think about in creating your website for your game. Because obviously you have an online store, you want to have a website to go with it. Now, this is a disclaimer about what I'm about to say here. Everybody, I literally mean just about everybody you ask, has an opinion about website design, website functionality, all this kind of stuff. They'll love to run their mouth about it. I'm no exception. That's kind of what I'm doing here. So keep that in mind that, it never hurts to ask multiple people about this subject, see what other people say, and eventually come to a conclusion that makes you happy and that you feel comfortable about. Because I'm going to start talking about stereotypes. Isn't that a great way to start the show? In the website world, we've really got two groups of people here. We have web designers and we have web programmers. And frankly, we don't really necessarily get along super well. Now, stereotypically, when it comes to website designers, these are the people who use Photoshop to draw things and make stuff look really pretty. They like flashy stuff. They like weird animations, like panels that fly out and like morph and fade and transition and slide and all that kind of goofy stuff. Now, all this pretty stuff is not necessarily a bad thing. You want a website that looks nice. You want some nice, pretty photos, pretty pictures, things like that. But the problem is when the flashy stuff gets in the way of being able to find the content and just distracts your viewers from what their real purpose of going to the website is. And the other thing you got to keep in mind, this is more of a back-end thing that a lot of people don't see, is that sometimes these website CMSs, content management systems, is one of the terms you'll hear, like WordPress, Drupal, things that'll let you manage the content easily of your website, software like this, they're not really designed to interact well with these flashy things. So if a programmer has to build this stuff, you could end up with a website that's next to impossible to maintain, and because of that, it could actually lead to security issues down in the future. So the point is, you want pretty stuff, but it could get really out of hand really fast if you're not careful. Now, on the opposite side, you have us web programmers. Of course, this is what I put myself in. We're really concerned about functionality, and frankly, a lot of web programmers can just give a crap about how something looks. Ugliness doesn't really bother us for any number of different reasons. You got Craigslist as an example. It's an incredibly ugly site. It's fairly, okay, it's not really that functional. But that's an example of the kind of thing a computer programmer would make. Computer programmers are fantastic at adding functionality to a website, and they're also fantastic at knowing the limits of what things can and cannot do. And it's important to take that advice when planning out the functionality of your website. Now, the biggest problem we tend to have as programmers is we have the it's good enough mentality. And what I mean by that, when something is good enough, it means that I'm kind of sick of working on it, and I'll deal with whatever problems it has, and it might be perfectly fine for someone like me, but it's probably not going to work for some normal person who's non-technical savvy. That's why your company's IT infrastructures are basically a patchwork mess of bash shell scripts, because, yeah. So of course the trick here, as I've mentioned a few times, is finding the right balance between functionality and prettiness. And where you begin, first of all, is you need to know what is the objective of your website. And what I like to do is with a given website, you should have at most 3 objectives. A primary objective, which this is the thing that a person comes to your website to really find out about. Secondary, and of course a tertiary. When you start getting into having lots of goals, like you want people to do 17 different things and all this kind of stuff, the layout and sitemap of a website can become so convoluted you could end up with just an absolute mess. You can't find things. You end up with templates and designs that don't fit your content, and it just very bad things can happen. So the question is then, what are these three objectives? So I'll tell you what they are for the Kalidasia website, because they may seem a little bit out of order. Number one, the primary objective is I want people to learn about Legends of Kalidasia, and I'm talking about learning about the game mechanics, how it is played. With the secondary objective being people need to build a buy of the game. That's where the online store thing that I talked about comes in. And finally, tertiary objectives are people to find out more about the Kalidasia universe and the story behind the game to get people a little more hooked into the fiction and the deeper side of the Kalidasia story and universe. Now, the reason they're in that order is because, one, being an independent game, a lot of people are obviously not going to know about Kalidasia, or chances are if you're a new game company, a lot of people aren't going to know about your game. So if your goal is just to try to get them to buy stuff, people generally aren't going to just buy a game on a whim without knowing something about it. That's why when you come to the Kalidasia homepage, the first thing you're going to see is you got a little thing saying Legends of Kalidasia Space Combat Miniatures, or whatever my little tagline I wrote at the time is. And then there's going to be a Learn More button and a Shop button. Scroll down the page a little bit, and that's where you're going to find a very quick backstory of the Kalidasia universe. And then finally at the bottom, you got just some news items, because people tend to expect to see some kind of updates and changing content on the homepage. The goal, of course, is that people are going to head over to the Learn More page about Legends of Kalidasia, and they're going to find the details about how the structure of the game is, what the turn is like, and of course a couple of videos on how to play the game, and finally they're going to be able to see the store as to where they can buy the stuff. And at all times, in the header menu, there is a link to the store, so people, when they get as far as they want and want to see what kind of products are and how much things cost, they can always easily jump to the store. And finally, the tertiary objective is then being people need to learn more about the Kalidasia universe, and that's why, one, I have the universe tab, which talks about the factions, the timeline, and at some point here, when I got some time, I'll put some maps up of the Irigul Empire in different districts. And of course, there's the Beyond tab, where you can find stuff like this show, so people can learn more about the company, about me, and also how they paint figures and things like that. They're kind of just a collection of the supporting stuff to the game Legends of Kalidasia. Now, of course, your objectives may be very different than the ones that I use for my Legends of Kalidasia website. But the important thing is to, one, come up with your few objectives and then fill out your content around those objectives before you go ahead and design your website. You can dive in head first to website design first, but you do run the risk of having a website design that does not work with your content if you try to fill the content in later. So that's why I recommend always come with your content first if it's at all possible. Now I'm going to move on to a topic that I mentioned a little bit about last time, the online store thing, but self-hosted versus a service. Now self-hosted is where you've got a server or someone else has a server that's managing, you're basically just uploading content and files to it. But the point is you're actually the one who's maintaining the website software that's running the website. And there's a lot of great free options for the software you're running, but you're still going to be obviously paying a monthly fee for the server access or whatever it may be. Of course, things like WordPress and Drupal are very popular content management systems, or you could try to build your own custom solution using a programming language. But the thing to keep in mind here is unless either you or someone on your team is a web programmer, I honestly would not recommend a self-hosted solution. Of course, you could always farm this out to a third-party company, but those can get really expensive really fast, so just keep that in mind. And the reason I don't recommend it is just because eventually you're going to have a problem to solve. Your website's going to crash, an upgrade's going to fail, something's going to happen to the database, and you're going to have to know how to fix this stuff. And it can be very technical and very difficult if you don't have a programming or database administration backend. So that's one thing to think about. Now the service is where you don't really worry about uploading files to the website or managing the software running the website. You're going to pay a monthly fee to somebody who's already got their software done at their job of management. For example, Squarespace is a very popular one where they run the software. You just upload your content, maybe put some images up there and files to download, but they handle all the heavy back-end programming stuff. You don't got to worry about that kind of a thing. Of course, the big advantage here, of course, you don't got to worry about the computer technical stuff, which for a lot of people is definitely a good plus. The downside, though, is that due to the fact that you can't really customize these systems, you're going to be limited a little bit in terms of functionality, in terms of appearance, and things like that. A lot of them are very flexible, but it's going to come down to you're going to have to do some adaptation of your workflow to their system and not try to heavily customize their system at all, because chances are with a service you're not going to be able to do that very much. And there's a lot of great options out there. You can go ahead and look them up and see what the people say about them, see what they offer for the price, and choose one that's right for you. And then the final kind of big topic about running a website, and it's SEO, search engine optimization. This is a big magic word you hear a lot of people talking about. A lot of people call themselves search engine optimization experts, and the reality is most of those people are not SEO experts. There are people out there that make a lot of money doing it. I know one, I've met one before, but for the most part, what this really means is trying to get your website to show up favorably, primarily in search engines like Google. Of course, it applies to things like Bing as well. But Google's the main one you hear people talk about, and they talk a lot about different algorithms and different names for algorithms and all these different terms and crazy stuff. It's this whole subculture of website design and website marketing. The thing to keep in mind here, Google's official recommendation is write good content, people will be able to find it and share it, and therefore keep people coming to your site. SEO is really about trying to optimize your site for Google's search system to basically index it and find stuff and make it easier for people to find. There are ways you can improve your search engine results and things like that, and that's what a lot of this is about. There's also a lot of bad ways to do it, and a lot of people who are selling just bad junk services that can really hurt you in the long run. So you're really entering into a very kind of almost dark area of the internet when you get into SEO. There's a few people who know what they're doing, a lot of people who don't, and a lot of people who just toss out a lot of fancy sounding terms. Now, it's just be careful when you get in this category. So hopefully those things help and give you some ideas to think about when you go about creating your website for your game. If you have any more questions or comments for me, send them over to kalidasiagames@gmail.com, and perhaps I can answer one on a future episode. If you have any questions or want to learn more about Legends of Kalidasia, you can head over to the site at kalidasia.com. You can find all our products for sale, including a free basic starter set that you can try the game out at no cost. So once again, I'm Jason. Thanks for watching.